All right, we live. We live. You know what it is. It's seed talk stuff to make your seeds walk. We got Precious P on here. Trisha's coming. Bobby ain't gonna be here tonight. We're gonna start tagging our people and whatnot. And you know, uh it's seed talk. Well, we sometimes we like to dig in the weeds, you know what I'm saying? Because it's the weeds that try to, strangle out the seeds. And so we're gonna talk about code switching. And we want to know what y'all, what y'all think about that and whatnot. Um, because there are people who grew up in the black community specifically who do not like, slang and ebonics and whatnot, and and some people whose parents and elders in the household be like, don't be speaking that broken English, that slang. And I know y'all, y'all been through it and whatnot, and y'all have heard these same things. So I want y'all to jump on and talk about it. If you want to be on tonight's show, go ahead and inbox me. You know what I'm saying? Or let me know in the comments, and I might send you the link for you to be on the show if you don't, be on no ignorant stuff and whatnot. But how did you grow up? You know what I'm saying? Because you got a southern accent. I'm sure
Yeah.
the conversation and the dialogue is going to go in that direction too, talking about different accents. Some accents are respected in the black community, some are not. And let's just talk about the brown elephant in the room. You know, there's a lot of stigma and stereotypes and quite frankly disrespect, to the southern accent. There's all kinds
There is.
of stereotypes and derogatory stuff that is being said towards people with southern accents. So growing up in the South, you got a beautiful accent and whatnot. And what was it like growing up having the code
Um,
switch and
from my own personal experience, due to it could be many reasons. Because I know as a child, I was in speech classes a lot. Because I'm not sure if I had a slur with my words or a speech impediment growing up. I'm not exactly sure, but I had to take a lot of speech classes growing up. But
hmm,
I think with Southern people, I think the way we say certain words, I think this is why I say I think region plays a role in it as well. That the way we say words, it could be different for someone from another state. So if it sounds different from someone else, especially if they're not used to hearing it, they'll automatically think, "Oh, you don't know how to talk," or "You have bad pronunciation," or vice versa. Well, it's not really the case. It could just very well could be based on the region that you grew up in, and also with certain words, if you're not used to seeing certain words, you're gonna they say pronounce words the way you see it. They say
hmm.
read the word and sign it out. So if no one's there to to correct you on that, then of course you're gonna think there's nothing wrong with it. My parents wasn't too much of a corrector in our house. I mean, we still talk the way we talk, but in terms of when I was in school, to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't have an issue writing papers. Like my spelling wasn't off or anything. If anything, and we just talked about this among my family, my teacher thought I didn't know how to read.
Hmm.
And the reason why she thought that because I wasn't much of a speaker. Because I was a very timid child growing up. The person I am today, the second grade precious will be blown away.
Hmm.
So I think with our accents or whatever, it's not. I don't think there's too much of an issue because many teachers down here have Southern accents. So it's not too
When
much.
but what about when you relocate and you go other places? That's what I'm talking about.
Or when you go to other places, you know
Yeah.
what? I honestly have not had an issue. Like when me and my people traveled to Philly, which is up north, and the way they talk is a little different. They knew we wasn't from there, but it wasn't like they had an issue with what we're saying.
Hmm.
It's kind of one of those things. It could be a code switching thing that we try to say our words more clearly
Hmm.
compared to how we'll say it down here. And yet, there has been a stigma that they feel that Southern people are ignorant or we're slow or whatnot, which is far from the truth. It's nowhere like that down here. So,
Do you
and
think that? Sorry to cut you off,
go
but
ahead, go ahead.
do you think that people judge a person's intelligence by the way they talk? And if they
Yeah.
do, how do you think they do that? And why do you think they do that?
I think it's one of those things that if someone thinks that their way of talking is perfect or it gets them to where they need to go, if it don't meet their standards, oh well, this person is not smart. Because a lot of people, especially those who came from a let's say a prestigious background, they feel if you say words that's not part of their vocabulary, they
Mhm.
automatically assume that oh you're not intelligent or you're not smart. But what people fail to realize, and intelligence is different. Everybody's level of intelligence is not going to be the same.
Right.
So when you have that sort of mentality, so yeah, there's definitely people who judge people by the way they talk, which I find kind of strange because I'm like, that's funny. Dolly Parton got a very nice Southern accent, but I don't think nobody thinks she's stupid.
Hmm. Yeah, I think if anything, we think that Dolly Parton is cute, with her
Yeah,
southern accent. They're cute. So you think you've actually experienced that, like you've got the feeling that someone thinks that you're less intelligent based on how you talk.
I have encountered that a couple of times, not as much, but to be perfectly honest with you, I got it mostly from the palm face people than anybody else. But that's the palm hand people. But other than that,
Yeah, Blaze
but
brothers and sisters. Yeah,
but to be fair, those people were not originally from Texas. They're not from the South at all. They're
yeah,
like from like Virginia or somewhere more towards the East Coast. That they're when they came down here with us, well, the schools like it's a good mix between us and white people. Like none of the schools that at least I can recall growing up were not predominantly white. I think we were a good mix of black children, white children, Hispanics, and vice versa. So yeah, I do think people do tend to judge off of that. But I
yeah.
find it so interesting is how someone, at least it's for me, when I talk, well, the way I write and how I talk is two different things.
Hmm.
My writing is dead on. I've always got compliments on my papers.
Yeah,
But of
yeah,
course, how I talk is different. And
yeah,
that's where the
yeah.
culture come
I
in.
noticed that. I really appreciate how why you write. You know what I'm saying? Um, the way you present yourself on social media and whatnot. When I follow your posts and your writing and whatnot, it's good. It's good. I'm gonna bring Trisha up on here.
Jeez.
What's going on,
Hey,
Miss Trish?
Trish!
Hello.
Just the
Hello.
three of us. Yeah, three's company. Shout out to
Hello.
shout out to Bobby Tank Top. He couldn't join us tonight. He said he had dinner. You know what I mean? So we got to respect that and whatnot. The young man's got to eat because he little. He about fucking
Never
not
seen
fat,
him in
about
person.
150. He said, Logic, I can't do no cardio. I'll disappear. So what we're talking about, just to bring you into the fold, we're talking about um, like code switching. We haven't really gotten really deep in the weeds of code switching. We're gonna get there, but I want to ask you a question. Do
Mhm.
you think we judge a person's intelligence by the way they talk, Trisha?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Particularly us. And when I say us, I mean collectively, Black and Brown people. Yes, we do.
Yeah,
It's more about, and we also don't give each other really a break in terms of if we are multilingual as well. So yeah, we do.
yeah. You think that you've ever been guilty of judging someone on their intelligence, either if you hear them talk and you think they talk really well and they pronounce enunciate things, you think they're really intelligent, or the opposite end, they might speak broken English or they might not be able to
Mm.
speak it very well, and you'd be like, you know,
I think living in another country for almost 20 years gave me more grace, that I don't do that anymore. But before I experienced living in another country and not speaking their language as my first language, I used to judge people. I used to judge people more, particularly in terms of profanity, because my parents always taught, or my mother in particular, used to tell me that, and my sister, that someone that uses profanity has a small vocabulary, because that's why they resort to that word. And
that's a
they
good.
never swore around us and always challenged us that, even she said, you can call me names, but it better be a word that's out of the thesaurus. that, and as an aside, that helped me once in school, and anyone that's watching this that went to Transfig with me. At one point, I was upset with a teacher who gave me an A minus instead of an A on a paper, and I distinctly called her a dog. I know that she heard me call her a dog, and I've never been
Dog
sent
or
in
just a dog?
class. Yeah, like you stupid dog, and she turned around like, "What did you say?" And I said a pedagogue. You know, I'm probably mispronounced it. And she was like, and she stared at me for a moment because she knew that I had said that, but she left it alone and went, "Oh, that's very nice that you know that word." I'm like, "Yes, it
Man,
means."
it's interesting you say that people who curse have a small vocabulary because, baby, I know how to say some curse words. But I was,
Mhm.
I probably got that, picked that little habit up from my dad. But yeah, I try not to curse. I know not to curse at work. I know that, but it depends on which company that I'm with.
Mhm.
And yeah, I will let something roll off my tongue. It all depends on the company you're with.
Yeah,
I'm not like that anymore.
it,
Yeah.
in all transparency and full disclosure, it's something that I have to check myself internally. A lot of stuff goes on internally with logic. I mean, that I don't let out, but I have to battle with that internally with a lot of our students that they're so diverse and they come from, unique backgrounds, and they're young, and so when they're not mature, you're coupling all these different things. They're not mature. Their hormones are going at different levels than you are. They got different traumatic experiences. They have triggers. And then on top of that, they have a vocabulary that isn't as articulate as yours. And I think the frustration sometimes when I have to check myself and be like, you know, um, this person's delayed is because it's the frustration, you know, trying to understand what they're trying to say, coupled with them making poor decisions. It's real easy to get frustrated and be like, dang, you know what I'm saying? It's like, don't you know better? And sometimes they don't know better. But not even knowing better doesn't mean that you are lower intelligence. It just means you just don't know that particular subject area or content. And that's why I'm glad that I work in the education establishment, is because I constantly have to unpack, my biases and my blind spots, shine light on my blind spots, because it's very easy, to be like, man, you can't say that word or da 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 da, you don't know what you're talking about. But sometimes just because someone can't articulate themselves or they can't say the word, what I'm saying, doesn't mean that they're they're not intelligent. And I be seeing like my multilingual students, say English as a second language, um, non-English native speakers, and they speaking and they were like, and sometimes they be like, I'm sorry, Mr. Amin, I don't know how to say that word in English. I say, hey, you speak English way better than I speak Spanish. I tell you that much. And I couldn't even imagine living in a country where, English wasn't the native, language. It'd be hard. People would think I was probably of low intelligence. I would lose a lot of my my literary intelligence and my communicative intelligence if I had to speak a different language. I often wonder what I would do. I'd probably just have to speak with my actions and my body language, and customs, or just be quiet, and observe a lot.
It's a humbling experience, and I'm glad that I had it because, like I said, it gave me more grace. Particularly like when I went, and so I lived in the Netherlands for almost 20 years, and I did not speak a word of Dutch when I arrived. And I went to university there, and it was really frustrating. That's literally the only reason I minored in English, was because I wanted to feel like I could do something well. And even there, of course, because it was close to England, they would
Right.
give me problems about my English. At one point, a professor even asked me, did I speak Black English or did I speak normal English? I'm like, I'm from the US, so I speak American English, so you don't need to worry. But yeah, people, even when children are coming up to you and you're trying to speak and they're telling, oh, you must be very stupid because you can't say this word properly. Then I'd switch back into English. I'm like, well, I could say this word properly, but people infantilizing you because you can't speak the native language well, discrediting your intellect. I worked when I first started there. I worked as a kamermeisje, and a kamermeisje, like I cleaned hotel rooms at first because I could not go to other interviews. They would assume that you're just an idiot. You can't speak Dutch fluently, and like I'm not an idiot. I'm in like at that time I'm in Mensa. I'm intelligent. I can prove that I'm intelligent, but no one really cares because they're looking at you and thinking, well, you're speaking with this accent. You're not using words that adults would use. You're missing context. You can't even swear. Even the profanity words were going over my head. So yeah, particularly with us, we also, so another aside that when I was in school, I was always interested in the linguistics courses. And some of the courses that I took would point out that, African American English, they said, it's a specific type of English, and it's patterned based on, was it subject, object, verb languages? I think it was SOV languages, like native languages in West Africa, same pattern, as well as what Jamaican patois, they said, was based on Irish, and but that they really respected the fact that it was a different means of speaking the language, that we had added creativity to English, that kind of thing. And then to come back here and it's like, oh, you speaking that what from New Orleans or Yat or something, and nobody wants to hear that, or that makes you sound like you're not intelligent.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about your experiences in New Orleans because you have roots there, right?
Yeah.
So what happens when you go back to New Orleans and they hear you based on your code switching, performances in the great Pacific Northwest? What did they say? Because I got my experience when I go back to the Midwest. When I go back to the Natty, yeah, I want to hear yours first. And I already asked Precious of how people relate to her when she goes up north.
Oh my gosh.
And she's cool. And I'm like, bless your soul. Bless your soul.
Yes. I did not, like, they asked me how I pronounce Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're like, oh, you said it right. I'm like, why wouldn't I say it right? Just because you have an accent. I'm like, wait, what that got to do with anything?
Yeah.
They test my accent on that.
All my Pacific Northwest training, there's still some words that I cannot say like you're supposed to, quote, say them. It took me a long time to pronounce Pacific in that specific ocean, stuff like that. But
I just try to tell me, and people tease me.
Or bathroom.
Oh my god,
that's that Midwest in me. Bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
And people also use other words. Like some people would say, use your noggin. And even for me, I'm like, what? What is a noggin? And it had to click in my head that they talking about use your head. But that person was from Florida.
Right.
So the way they say words is totally different how a Texan say it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was your experience after your Pacific Northwest training?
Oh my gosh.
And you went back down to
Nolens when I go back home. Well, so people that don't know me, when I first arrive and I start speaking, they'll say things like, oh, you speak English so well, you're so educated. And that's when I'm usually like down back in the 7th or the 9th ward. That's the first thing they'll say. And I'll usually say, why do you think that I'm educated? You could still be, from here and sound like that. What is that based on? And or they'll say that, oh, you speak, or we like your accent. Some of the words like POC I was using down home, and they're like, what are you talking about, people of color? Or what's that? And I'm like, black, brown, and like big question mark. Oh, you mean this specific group and things? And usually if I stay, when I'm there anytime longer than 2 weeks, I start to slip back. And then I'll come back here and then I don't notice it. And then people are saying, why I'm calling people, like guys usually call you ma or whatever. I'm calling people ma every minute. They're like,
Yeah.
ma, bae, and I'm like, what are you? I'm like, okay. And then I slip back. But when we were younger, because we were raised first there, and then our parents brought us to LA. My mother, who was obsessed with us not sounding like we were from New Orleans,
Right.
and she would speak to us, and she would overpronounce R's for some reason, or she would add an R to things, and she couldn't stop that. So when we were in LA, there's a street called La Brea.
Yep.
She would always say La Brea. And so when we were kids, we go, Mom, what's that street? She's like, La Brea. And she thought that she sounded like she was saying La Brea. But until the day she was not saying.
LA specifically, the Bay Area too. I really appreciate their accents because it's like a hybrid of like this West Coast, Midwest, but it's down south too. Like Snoop Dogg voice is so nice to listen to. He's got such a cool voice. You know what I mean? And I feel the same way about Common's voice. I feel like Common is like the rapper Common is like that is a traditional like Midwest voice. Like, that's not like someone's uncle from Chicago, you know what I'm saying, or Cincinnati or Detroit. And then, and then T.I., I just think his voice is so cool too. And then I get on the show with Precious P, you know what I'm saying, I'm like, see, there it is again. Learn to love and appreciate the diversity, you know what I'm saying, in the tapestry of voices that come from Black people. And I'm glad that I can look back and be like, man, I was so ignorant when I used to make fun of people with different accents. I remember, but then it was a lot of it. I think if you wasn't on defense mode so much trying to code switch in the Black community, if so many Black people who are around you weren't insecure when you started to like do bigger and better things, because that's a common thing. You know what I'm saying? They call it crabs in the barrel, but I would argue we're not supposed to be living in barrels. That's why we act like that. You know what I mean? So when Black people start to see other Black people do things that they haven't done before, speaking how they haven't spoke before, or, what they aspire to, because a lot of our role models, are white people speaking standardized English on TV. And they block a lot of literature too that really examines and celebrates like ebonics, like Azora Neale Hurston, The Eyes of Watching God. Like that's one of the only books that you get that really has that type of speak in there. You got Alice Walker, The Color Purple, but that wasn't mandatory reading like The Eyes of Watching God. Like when I was in high school, that was like one of the few books that you had to read. But when I would go back to Cincinnati after, my Northwest training, you know what I'm saying? They'd be like, oh man, you talk like a white boy. And I was like, damn, and I would get self-conscious about it. But then I learned to combat it with and like really understands like, but who really taught white people literature? Who taught white people how to read? It was Africans. We were the first literate human beings walking on two, you know what I'm saying, speaking this word, reading and writing before anyone else. So I'd be like, my comeback will always be, well, I guess Martin Luther King spoke like a white boy too, because he spoke some proper English. And Malcolm X, that's usually the person, Trisha, that people reference that quote from when he talked about profanity. He said that's a person with limited vocabulary. And then Will Smith is saying it too. And that's why that's one of the reasons and the justification Will Smith said, that's why I don't use profanity in my music. Malcolm said that, and I do agree with that. Like when I rap, I very rarely, if ever, use a cuss word because I want to push myself to find different words. However, I got to come back to what Trisha said. I ain't gonna lie. I got to testify. And to this day, I still do this. I ain't gonna lie. Inside, I do it. If you cuss too much around me, especially if you're being disrespectful, I'm be like, man, come on. You got to read a book. And it's mainly because they be being disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? And it's like they're forcing the cuss words, and they feel like the only way they can make their point, most of the times, the only way they can be funny is they cuss.
Mhm.
So I still do that, sometimes, what I'm saying? Shoot, what I mean? There's more than one way to be human, and this is how I'm being human,
Mhm.
I'm saying. But um, let's do a transition real quick because Bobby talked about code switching. Well, he talked about an experience. He shared a story, and this is an ongoing theme and storyline and Sea Talk. We know Bobby adopted one of his family members and whatnot, and he's going through this, and he had a little of a, I wouldn't call it a dilemma. He had a little a scenario where he was like, she's writing papers, but she's writing in, what I'm saying, like what they would call African American vernacular or ebonics, and he
Okay.
doesn't know if he should allow her to write her academic papers, her school papers in that voice, in that style, or should he be correcting it? And I just want to know from y'all, what was y'all experiences growing up in Black households when it came to when you came home? Were you able to speak freely? Could you say ain't? Because when I grew up, ain't wasn't a word. We couldn't say we gonna be, and it was all these different rules. My grandmother was a school teacher for over 30 years. So she was beating us up with the grammar, you know. Um, so what was it? What was it? She would beat us up with the grammar, but then turn around and say something like trifling. Like, I'm looking in the dictionary. Where is trifling at? Where is trifling at, Grandma?
Honestly, I mean, for me, we still say ain't in the household. Like, sorry, that nothing. Maybe it's a southern thing. We don't really police nobody's words house in our household unless it's something really I like. What does that even mean? Or someone misusing a particular term. And my third brother, he tend to use words like, I think that's not what you meant. I think you probably meant this particular term, not that one. I see where you try to use that, but that one doesn't fit the scenario. So that's the only thing we may run into. But we do say ain't because that's just how we talk among ourselves. Like we say ain't nobody trying to hear all that. We do see use the ain't word. In terms of writing papers, as I was saying a little earlier, I think in terms of Bobby's situation, I hate to say this, it's probably best to let her talk in her own language on that paper so she can learn.
Why you say in his situation though?
Huh?
I'm, I'm not instigating. I'm saying
Oh
why
no,
you
no,
say.
I say no because I'm just going by because of the scenario. What I did, I wrote what I thought. I put my own personal thoughts on paper, and they go. Of course, it gets submitted to the teacher, and the teacher, do they red markings and say this is not how you say this, or what do you mean by this? And they at least my teachers growing up, they kind of make us think, what is this supposed to mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, they'll be like, well, instead of saying that, maybe you need to use this instead.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like harshly. At least I don't recall any of my teachers ever harshly graded my papers or say anything about the way I talk. So I turned out just fine. So I think in that situation, I think she should learn how to. I guess I have to say she kind of have to go with the punches for her to really learn how to write a paper.
And you guys grew up around a family member that would check you on acts. Can I ask you a question? And they'd be like, do you need something to cut with? I
If
don't see.
anything, they may say instead of saying "can you," it's a "may I." They
No.
will say
Oh,
that.
that too. Yeah, that too. I'm
That's
talking about.
one thing I would say to say because I remember as a kid we were doing gingerbread houses. It was for Christmas, fourth grade, and I heard a student. It wasn't me. It was a student in front of me, and asked, "Can I get something?" And she was like, "I don't know. Can you?" And I was looking at the teacher like, damn, teacher, he just asked you to get some. Just give it to him. But she's like, well, you just said say, can I? She said, may I? So that's how I learned from then. Instead of asking, can I asked, may I?
I don't. Yeah.
I think
See,
that was kind of. I thought that's so petty, but
it is. And is that a Southern thing?
But
I don't know.
Can I? Checking people on saying, "Can I?" I don't know. Can you?
I
I
mean,
don't.
down here I spent. I didn't personally spend, but I saw other students. That's what made me correct myself.
And I want to go to Trisha real quick. I want to ask. I want to get her in there. But you know what? You know what the crazy thing about it is? Black people, especially up north in the Midwest, but that's the North, and West Coast, we really got to check our implicit biases against the South that we have,
Yes.
because how you speak
Yes.
comes out of the South.
Mhm.
The South. That is the birth of Black English, is the South. We seem to forget over here on the West Coast, this was New Frontier. This was uninhabited land. There was no one over here but natives.
Mhm.
Yeah, there might have been some Black natives over here. That's a whole different episode of Sea Talk. Yes, we know Black people was already over there, even before the slave ship. But what I'm saying is we gotta put some respect on their name, like Baby said. But what was it like growing up in your household? Could you talk any kind of way you use broken English?
So while you were saying that, I realized we code switched in our house as well. So around our parents, we weren't using words like ain't or I think once my mother heard me say studying about. I mean, I'm not studying about that or something, and she's like, "Wait, what word is that? I've never used this
Yeah,
word."
my mom's ain't studying, y'all. I'm not saying how you feel that. How you feel that.
And that was a drop the plate moment. That, oh my God, where did you learn such? But I mean, we also had relatives and uncles and aunts who spoke differently. So around them, we spoke a certain way. If any of my relatives are watching, around Uncle Boney, we spoke one way. So with him, you could say whatever, and So we switched to how he would speak. Around our parents, we spoke probably more properly. Didn't drop ain't or studding bombs. In the neighborhood, or when you're like playing with other kids, that's when you would get everything. So yeah, we code switched all over the place, as well as then in New Orleans, if you're switching into Creole or so you were like speaking different ways. And also I have to remember my father being in the entertainment industry, they were trained to probably speak as European as possible.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of, my dad was playing with bats and everything, they would educate them to speak a certain way in public. So, and I think that also carried into their life. And because of that, they were obsessed with us sounding like we were from California, not sounding like we were from New Orleans. And that was to sound like you were from California was the standard in terms of acceptance or pride in your kids and everything. But yeah, we code switched, I'd say, even in our own house. And then you'd speak a completely different way if you were going to church. So, because you definitely couldn't drop the bombs there. But the elders in the church spoke a different way as well.
They did. That church church lexicon was tough. It was a beast.
Yeah.
And you know what the crazy thing about it is? I don't know, because Trish and I are pretty much the same age.
Mm-hmm.
She's my big sis, about maybe a year or two. But I think Precious knows about this because she's from the South. The way the church talk is an interesting. It's not a different language; it's a different dialect. But if they say, "I'm gonna pray for you," that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
On how they said it, you feel me? Bless his soul. I'm gonna pray for him.
Bless his soul. Oh,
I don't say let God handle it.
Exactly.
Let God handle it. In other words, there ain't nothing you can do about it, but leave it alone.
Yeah, and then,
what they say.
I felt like Black people, to be competitive in white institutions in a pro-white dominated world, we always try to figure out a way we could one up each other. And I feel like the religion talk and the church talk was one way to be like, I'm better to you because I attend more services than you, or I dress better than you, or I don't reveal myself. So you're like, how you doing? I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Highly favored.
Highly favored.
Yeah.
Because you haven't taken Jesus Christ as your Lord Savior. You haven't been baptized. I'm blessed. I don't know about you. You know what I mean?
Ain't no water.
Alvina said, growing up with my mother, we had to be proper. However, my father was very Mississippi country. I got the best of both worlds, but the expectation was to surely be intelligent, educated, respectful, and well spoken.
Yes.
No ain't no cursing. Let me ask y'all something. Do y'all curse around your parents? And then if you do, when did you start? Were you a
No,
curse growing up?
Never.
no. I will. It wouldn't be intentionally. Sometimes it will slip. It's like the whole house will get quiet, and then they'll come out from wherever they came from. And go, so what you say? What you say? Get kind of closer to me. What I said. I said it with an accent, but I don't care with an accent. What did you say though? So I kind of have to confess if something slip out my mouth. Other than that, I do not curse around my parents at all. No.
Mm-hmm.
They had trained us so well with shoot and fudge for something else that even to this day, I still will say fudge versus something else. And unfortunately, my sons, they both swear. And in response, I will still stick with the fudge. I don't know where they picked up the swearing because I never did it, but of course in the real world. But I'm a big fudge instead of F. I can't even say it.
Or sometimes they don't like you saying you telling some stories, which means you're lying, and they don't like to,
I
not want you saying that at all.
You could not. That was like giving the middle finger.
It really is. You
on,
can't.
on the elder. If you said an elder was not telling the truth or calling them a liar, that's a rap. You know what I'm saying?
Rap on your head.
For real, man. Oh, you can be saying that. Nah, you can't be saying all that. Although they do be lying.
Yeah.
They do be lying though.
Did you when you grew up, did you grow up did you grow up being punished for not speaking proper English?
No.
Okay. Because some of us did.
Yeah, I know some
you hear about those people.
I know my sister had the soap in her mouth once.
Exactly.
She did say, that's not a good thing to do.
You had to write a certain sentence over and over again. Yeah. Some of us had to do that. You know what I mean?
I've always thought children, at least back in the day, I figured children did that because they did something wrong, not necessarily because of the way they talk.
No, she said a bad word once, and a bad word. She used profanity once.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And they put it in her mouth, and that's not a good thing to do. Of course, they said they were going to do it, so they had to do it.
Yeah, because I had said a lot of times they punished us and they corrected us because improving our English improved the quality of our life. You know what I'm saying? And if you didn't speak interview language, if you didn't do interview speak, that means the Black person or the person who does is going to articulate themselves better. They're going to get a job. And then you getting a job means it's going to increase, your livelihood. And so, there were parents that actually punish their children for not speaking proper English. Do you think it's okay to punish children for speaking improper English?
In terms of total, what do you mean by punish? In terms of criticizing them or some sort of
all of it, all of that. I mean, of course, I know all three of us is pretty much going to say, no, you should not be going up beside your child's head and physically putting hands on your kid or your child for speaking improper language. But we got to understand when you ridicule or criticize someone, that kind of stuff traumatizes people. I mean, it got me for a minute, man. When I started, it was the opposite, though. When I would speak proper English and then I go home and Black people used to make fun of me, it made me put a little twang in my stuff or put a little accent, put a little more swag and be like, hey, man, go back to your roots. You feel me? That's a form of punishment. And to this day, it's still a trigger. Like if someone called me a white boy, you talk like a white boy, you used to sell out. It's like, oh, I'm on the other side now. You're aligning me with the institution that oppresses you. That's a little bit triggering for me. I can fight my way out of it, but I ain't gonna sit on the screen and lie and act like another Black person, ridiculing me because I speak proper English. You feel me? It's a problem. It like it's not a problem. It is. Do But do you think it's okay to punish your children for speaking improper English, knowing the fact that the better English you speak and the more literate you sound, there's a lot of research that it does improve your quality of life, like it or not.
I really don't like the word punish. I can see critique.
Okay.
I don't like the word punish because that sounds like every time you say something they say that's not improper, someone gonna be like deeply pretty much deep in your ass. Yeah, I'm cursing. Really deep in your ass about it. I don't think that's the way to go about it. If anything, you just critique them every time they do say something. Just say, hey, remember what it also kind of do with kind of communication with them first.
Mhm.
And then as they say they do not say a word properly, just say, hey, what I say about saying this type of word.
Mm-hmm.
And let the child correct themselves. Now, eventually, it should start to, I hate to say this word, program into the child's mind, say, okay, I need to use this term when talking to these type of people or whatever they at, or I guess whatever they need to talk proper at, whether it's 24/7 or depending on what company that they're with.
Right. What you
That's
what
why
you
I don't like the word punish like that.
Well, I also, even when I was younger, and I've probably mentioned this before, I've always thought it was funny when someone would tell me that I'm acting white or you talk like a white girl, whatever. Because I would say, you're using a European white language to tell me that I speak like a white person. That makes no sense. What African languages do you speak?
Yeah.
And I've been saying that since I was 13 years old.
That's
Because I've been
great
called
comeback.
like you talk like a white girl. Like, okay,
You know
you're
what?
using English to tell me I talk like. I would have more respect for you. You come up to me and tell me that in Hausa or Wolof, then we're good.
Right.
But
You
you
know,
say
that just
English,
remind me of something. I'm not sure if this is a Southern thing or have to do it much with how we talk. But I also think when it comes to our children, nowadays they try to change it up. But back then, when we refer to genital parts, we said we have a nickname for it instead of the actual name. Like instead of saying the vagina, a lot of children say the coochie or something like that as children. I'm just saying because they didn't say the real the
Yeah.
real terminology
possible.
for it. Now they teaching children not to say the actual little term compared to how we used to say it because they felt it was inappropriate to say, for a child to say it the way it is. Now they're changing that narrative. Now they're changing the narrative that they're teaching children to say it, especially in cases of a sexual abuse or whatnot. Because they feel a lot of teachers don't know what those other slang words for our genital or our private sexual or private parts are. So I don't know. Just remind me of something.
It always made going to biology or health class afterwards interesting because, like, for in my household or our family, our mother called a vagina possible, and then when you were a teenager, it was called probable, and then afterwards, she told you what the name. But I understood and respected the progression.
Deep.
So possible, probable, and okay, this is called a. You're like,
Yeah, I
but
don't think there's two words that no, there's really, you know what, growing up, I made, remember back in the day you used to go to Walmart and Target and they had the edited versions of every album. I made
Yeah.
sure I only played the edited versions for my children. I didn't cuss around my children. Um, and I cannot remember a time where I ever had to tell my children to watch their language because they were using profanity. Um, but as they got older, and you know what? I didn't even correct my children when they said nigga every now and again. They would say nigga, I'd be like, but they knew how to code switch though, because they were peeping their father though. They'd be like, Dad don't cuss around me. He's a rapper, but he don't cuss in his raps, but he still is, got a lot of street knowledge and stuff like that. I mean, it was kind of was a cheat code for them. It's kind of not fair, their dad was the freaking principal of their school, so it's like they saw me get down. They went everywhere with me. I was the coach of their basketball team, so it's like they see me operate. But when they started saying cuz, not cousin. I like cousin. Cousin's cool. That's Midwest. Like that's cousin. Like that's my cousin. We play cousins all day. But cuz that's gang stuff. I'd be like, hey man, chill with that cuz, that cuh, all that. You're not in the gang, bro. and some people died for that, and we don't play around with that. And my kids, I never seen my kids, my children sea walk or nothing like that's a whole different episode when we call it dancing. But when I think about it, that's the only word that even after they're adults, I don't. It doesn't bother me if my children curse around me.
Oh wow.
It doesn't bother me at all. I think it's kind of cool. I got like three children that are all adults, and we tell the most insensitive and twisted jokes. You know what I'm saying? But for whatever reason, that gang stuff and our street family, that kind of talk, for some reason, if my hey, what's up, blood? I heard my child say, I said, hey man, be cool. For some reason, that bothers me. I got to unpack that. I don't know. I think the main thing is a safety thing, because I grew up in the height of gang violence. You say some stuff like that, people be like, well, what's up there? Where you from?
What's good?
Yeah, what's good? You know what I'm saying? And I remember at a young age, I told my children, because we used to, my children grew up traveling. I said, if you ever go to a black neighborhood, don't say what's up. Because someone might be like, yeah, what's up? What is up? What is up, nigga? Say peace. That's a universal language. And black people, whatever, they might think you're a Muslim or something. So what? It might save your life. Say peace. Like black people respect peace, 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 peace. You know what I'm saying? They might think, you should have a bow tie on and give them a bean pie, but hey, Christians say peace too. Peace be unto you. You know what I'm saying?
That's how you say what's up. They be like, nah, what's ain't nothing about but something finna go down. See, it just go left field quick.
Right.
And it just remind me, like, I'm gonna my mom corrected me because we used to say let's talk about an address or a phone number. Some people say zero as O. And instead of saying O, you need to say zero.
Oh yeah. I do that now in my older age. I do that now. Maybe like it's 10 o'clock. I said there's actually no letters and numbers. It's actually 10 0.
The TV show was 90210.
Yeah, 90210. Yeah,
90210, not 90210.
Not those zeros. Those are
Oh, it's 007.
Yeah, 007. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct, but 90210, maybe that's California.
You know what? I guess it might just be as simple as the O and the zero have the same shape, but I wonder where that got started.
101. Yeah, even the highway is Highway 101.
Well, the
it's
zero
not 101.
Oh, you got way off track. You go to some public libraries and they and instead of it looking like a U, it looks like a V. And there's history behind that too. The U and the V are interchangeable. Like I'd be like, I used to notice that when I was going to Columbia City Library, I was like, the public library said PVB. I'm like, what the heck? What kind of? But someone explained to me that the U and the V is interchangeable. It might be like that for zero and O. I don't know. We got out. But anyways, so let's. What's the plan? And if you're watching this, I haven't been saying it enough. This is Seed Talk. Please share. You know what I'm saying? Tag some people on this. We're gonna keep circulating this episode and whatnot because people need to hear this. But thank you for supporting Seed Talk and whatnot. And being patient because we usually come in on a Wednesday, but we try to get it in once a week. You know what I'm saying? So this is our once a week, and we try to get back at you on Sunday too. Got a big playoff game on Sunday, so keep my fingers crossed. You know what I'm saying? But this is what we do. My Bengals is playing the Chiefs. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough situation, my man. I got to root for the home team, but I love the black quarterback. You know what I'm saying? But what's the plan of action when we talk about code switching and how do we support it? You know what I'm saying? Should we allow our children to speak slang at home and then go into the white institutions and fear that they're not going to meet standard and whatnot? What y'all think? What's the plan of action?
I would say ultimately you have to, like we had to learn. I think you have to let children find their own way when it comes to that type of stuff. We can guide them or critique them on how to navigate those type of waters, but at the end of the day, that's a learning experience for the children to find their place or find their comfort zone between speaking proper or speaking slang, depending on the circumstances. Yes, I understand we want to, better our children, but I think we're in a time and space now that I think I'm not sure if it's still rigid today as it was when we were growing up. I'm not sure how it is in the atmosphere of schooling when it comes to way of talking, but I think it's starting to become a little more. At least I think it's coming a little more lax with these kids. But I ain't got kids, so I can't really pinpoint that. But ultimately, I think we need to let children find their own way, and if they're not, not living up to the proper standard, they'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah,
They'll figure their way out eventually because eventually it occurs when they go from elementary gonna go to high school. So that sort of register is always gonna be repeated throughout pretty much most of their life. So you gotta let kids find their way.
I'm a big. I like what you said. That was good. That was good. I'm a big proponent, and we don't see this enough in black families and black communities because ironically we get compared to white people and how white people raise their children. We don't let kids just what did you say, Precious? You said let them do what?
Let them find their own way.
Yeah, we don't let our children too many times. I'm not trying to stereotype all black people, but too many times we do not let children just find their own way with supervision. That's the key. Now I'm gonna let you go do that, but I'm here to supervise you, to teach you along the way, to let you know we're all like, don't do that, don't do that. And if you do it, I'm gonna punish you. I mean, that's been the culture for hundreds of years in the black community. So I like what you said is like, let them find their own way, give them the freedom, free to be dumb,
Right.
and also, free to, free the dumb. You know what I'm saying? But what you think, Trisha? What do you think the plan
I'm
of that?
thinking about that, but part of me was thinking that's because we know what's at stake. We don't have the luxury to, because again, I was in Europe and I saw how they could raise their kids. My kids couldn't be raised like that because they could say whatever they want. I used to see little kids like going and spitting on police officers and saying, and it was just a big joke that, haha, that's, yeah. And the cop would even say, yeah, I shouldn't have become a cop. And I'd turn and look at my kids like, you see that? You can't do that. Especially when we go back to the States. You can't do that. So they're, yeah, they have the privilege of the luxury of raising their kids differently. And I think probably because we're anxious and we know what's at stake. That might be why. But then we need some help with addressing that because that would be great if we could. I think one plan is to make sure that you're giving a kid a balanced experience. So give them what they need if they're not exposed to proper English, because we can't assume that that's what they're exposed to in school, because the teacher that don't make that assumption. But if that's not what they're receiving at school, then make sure you're modeling that for them. So give black children a balanced experience where they can experience the language in their culture, language as dictated by how it should be. Also realize that if you're trying to protect your kids from certain things, it's still going to happen. My parents didn't want us hearing profanity, and yet, I was probably the age of middle school at Transfig. First time I heard every profanity that I needed to learn was listening to Dirty Mind from Prince. I learned everything. And they had no idea that I had learned everything. But
Prince, he was one of my go-to guys. Yeah. Darling Nick.
Learned all kinds of combinations. All within one cassette tape. This is back in cassette days.
And if I'm not mistaken, Prince is the first artist to bring up the explicit lyrics on the album because of Prince music.
Maybe so. I don't know.
I've heard that he was the reason why his music was so explicit. He's the reason why they got to put like explicit on it because of his music. He started that. But that's a fun fact. But continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, Trisha.
It's all good.
Yeah. And also try and learn more languages. I wish we don't allow our kids to study languages very often. And I know it's because oftentimes languages are offered in competition with science and math, but it would be great if schools and such would offer both. and value it. Value being multilingual, because in a way we actually are. And by studying the other languages, you'll start learning that the way that we speak is based on West African languages and West Africans trying to learn English.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. 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 You know, another thing to study is Latin too.
Mm.
You know, to add on to your point, Latin is because a lot of the foundation of English words come from Latin, and that's been really good. Maybe Bobby can touch on that because I know to be an attorney, you gotta study. Then pass the bar, you gotta learn a lot of Latin. You know, Latin's on our dollar bill.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? U pluribus norum. You know,
Yeah.
um, my plan of action would be is number one is always stimulate and encourage um, safe places at your home for
Mhm.
just the kids to learn. Period. They're learning from every different kinds of languages, like Trish said, but also dialects. You
Mhm.
know, um, supervise that, and then I would do this too. I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily say restrict your children from saying certain things, but I would have them translate.
Mhm.
So if they was like, oh, I'm listening to that drill music, Dad, you know how it is, the drill music. Like, okay, articulate that in standard English. What does drill music mean? And they probably say something that is music with the, you know, extremely high content of gun violence in it.
Mhm.
That's what drill music is. And that's a true story. Like when I went back to the Natty, I went back to Cincinnati probably like 2 years ago. It's like,
Mhm.
um, nah, Dad, my oldest son was like, nah, Dad, you don't know about that. That's that drill music. I said, what? Drill music? What is that? Do it yourself music? What is that? Carpenter music? He's like, nah, Dad, it's that Chicago stuff, that drill music talking about shooting up people. I'm like, oh, you talking about,
Mhm.
what they call gangster music or street rap. No, Dad is drill music. I'm like, okay, whatever. I get you. It's music with a high content of gun violence. Gotcha.
Mhm.
Have your children articulate themselves. You know what I'm saying? When before we got on offline, I was like, oh, here's another plan of action. Stop talking stuff about quote unquote African American vernacular. Y'all taught me a new term, by the way, on
Mhm.
one time when we was talking. You and Bobby was like, "Would y'all say AAV or something like
Yeah,
that?"
AAVE.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "What is that?" And me just being an educator, I was like, "African American
And
vernacular." I was like, "English."
English.
That's what that means. And I was like, "Oh, I never said." I always said ebonics or black
Yeah.
vernacular, or I said colloquial
Mhm.
English, or I say slang. But yeah,
Mhm.
I said if you know, stop downplaying that's a dialect, man,
Mhm.
and it has rules. People be acting like slang and black vernacular don't have any ebonics doesn't have rules. Yes,
Mhm.
it does. Just because it's breaking the rules of English doesn't mean it doesn't have rules.
Mhm.
And when you say, "Oh man," with his, "Oh look at like," if a black woman, if I come in the room and a black woman say, "Oh, Logic with his big old head," I'm like, "Oh, she like me." You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like very rarely does a big old head mean that
Mhm.
she thinks you're attractive. Like I don't know
Mhm.
what it is. Probably come from the South because I
Mhm.
heard that people massage people's heads, the baby's heads, to get them the right shape. It might have something to do with that. I don't know. But if a specifically a black woman say you got a big old head and you a black dude,
Mhm.
she like you, or she say you crazy. That don't mean that you mentally ill. That means you funny
Mhm.
and you say things that other people ain't got the courage to say. Oh, Logic crazy. That boy crazy.
Yeah.
And when you around a whole bunch of black people in a gathering, someone call you crazy, boy, you get this feeling in you like, okay, keep going. You got him. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
Or even, and also when we shake our hair, like that don't necessarily mean it's negative.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the time don't mean negative. So they'll be
yeah,
like, man, I can't believe this. Or they can't be like, oh man, this is
Mhm.
terrible. Like
yeah.
people
And
think, oh, you being negative. No, it's just like it's a cultural thing.
and and here's the deal. I'm a part of a spiritual circle
Mhm.
that we have our own what we call alphabets or alphabet. so we can speak in code. Know your history, Black people. Know your history. Understand that standardized language in English, I should say, was imposed on you for a reason so you couldn't communicate amongst yourselves and start rebellions and revolutionize things.
Mhm.
So understand they had things like the Carlisle School, where they used to round up Native Americans and force them to speak English. And if they didn't, they would hurt you. And sometimes they killed you.
Mhm.
We got to remember that Black people used to be killed for reading and writing.
Mhm.
So this is
Fact.
something that's deep and cultural. What's the Pig Latin? You remember in high school when people used to speak Pig Latin, we would think they're great. Man, that is a gift.
I don't know
Me
how I've
working,
heard of it, but I never don't know what it
yeah,
sounds
what's the
like.
what or Creole down south. And when I went
Oh,
to
okay.
almost all, I mean, all the Black people were speaking Creole. They could at least speak
Mhm.
languages, Creole and English. And then what do they call it in Jamaica? Patois.
Patois. Right.
Yeah, it's like I feel so marginalized. I feel so limited. That's why I take so much value and be able to speak this English language with mastery because I'm around my students that speak French. My students speak English, I mean, and Spanish. They speak so many different languages. When I went to Africa, they speak at least three languages: English, Twi, and French.
Hmm.
And I'm like Trish said, teach your children languages and stop downplaying any kind of way to communicate. Stop doing that. So
Stop assuming people from the South, Black people from the South, are not intelligent as well based on their accent. We also got to remember majority of Black people in America live in the South now again. So stop acting like the majority of us are stupid just because we
Exactly.
speak with an accent.
yeah,
That's,
And I also want to give it a narrative that a lot of people because the South has low intelligence, they think that many people down the South are scared of white people. You got the game messed up. We're not scared of white people at all down here. I don't know who told y'all that, but I do believe that certain regions, like those who from a smaller towns, may perhaps, but us in these bigger cities, no, we're scared of y'all.
okay. Dang, okay. Okay, Pressure. I don't know where that came from, but we gonna honor that.
well,
There's
I understand it because there's this idea that the Black people that stay in the South, that they enjoy being subservient to white people, or they just can't. As someone who came from the South, went to that this idea that, yeah, the ones that are down there, they just couldn't hack it with in the North or the West. Like, no, that's not the reason. I mean, you can
Yes,
be
and
equally
that's why a lot of
successful in the
people who
South.
come from the north to come down south, and we
Mhm.
have what we call southern hospitality here. We used to have say hello and all that. So it happens to so many people. People come from like maybe from New York or Philly to come down to live here, and they're so thrown off by how friendly we are.
Mhm.
They think there's something wrong with them. I'm like, no, we are. For them, granted, it's racist around everywhere, but I'm saying that we are actually have what's called southern hospitality. We, for the
Mhm.
most part, we're very quite respectful unless treated otherwise. But
Mhm.
I guess, of course, from their environment they came from, they always have to have their guard up
Yeah.
based
Yeah.
on
So
what they
New
don't
York.
say.
New York,
Uh,
I hate I don't want to profile or stereotype, but New York are some of the most rudest people.
Oh.
my brother is up
No,
there right now, and I heard some stories.
you know what? Let me take that back. They
Oh.
are the most rudest presenting people. When you're in
Get
a
to know
debate with
them.
someone and they tell you to get the fuck out of here, like, come on, man, like, don't talk to me like that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Really,
they're
most
not,
people.
they don't mean to. Let me reverse that. They don't mean to be mean, but it's like definitely rude presenting. It's definitely a persona. Like, I'm from New
Hmm.
York. I'm from Jersey. This is how we are. You feel me? You
You
know?
have to earn it from them. Well, I mean, in the South, we give it to you first, and then if you burn us, then okay, we're
Yeah,
done with you. Versus New Yorkers, they're like, hey, you got to earn our respect. I don't respect you as a default. Do something to make me respect you and want to be friends with you.
that's probably you're probably right because when we went to Philly, most for the most part we got along with everybody that was up there. However, we went into this place where we got this long. Philly cheesesteak because we all want to try one. And this guy, I mean, he was a brother. We were trying to be mean, but he really had to. He was like, "Look at what side you want. You want this side or this side? Make up your mind. Which side you want? This side or this side? Probably I ain't got it all day." I'm like, "We're like, okay. We're gonna give you yours. We're gonna give our order. We take the big side, please."
It's
But it wasn't another.
it's
You
funny,
take it
just the
first.
culture, the culture,
It is.
That's why it's so important. And this is actually a part of my plan action too. It's so important for Black people to travel. So important. You got a cat over there?
Yeah.
I want that kitty. I want the kitty.
And
All
that's
right.
another thing. A lot of Black people don't like cats.
That's a great episode on the humor side. You know what I'm saying? All right, see, talk. Hey, and real quick, I'm gonna put y'all on blast real quick, only to motivate and encourage y'all. Trish and Precious about to come out with a podcast. I think, and I trust it's gonna be in addition to what we doing here on C Talk, but they got some plans. They got some plans, and I'm gonna encourage them, and I want us to support them too. Let's branch out, because that's the point of C Talk, pun intended, to branch out. But we out. We love y'all. Peace.